Welcome. Welcome to the Ministry Forum podcast, coming to you from the Center for Lifelong Learning at Knox College, where we connect, encourage, and resource ministry leaders all across Canada as they seek to thrive in their passion to share the gospel. I am your host, the Reverend John Borthwick, Director of the Center and Curator of all that is ministryforum.ca. I absolutely love that I get to do what I get to do, and most of all, that I get to share it all with all of you. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to give us a listen, whether you're a seasoned ministry leader or just beginning your journey. This podcast is made with you in mind. Joining me on the Ministry Forum podcast is a special co-host, our Ministry Forum intern, Sara Traficante. Now, if you're part of the Ministry Forum community, you already know Sara, as she was one of our Ministry Forum interns last year. We liked working with Sara so much that and we knew that she was sticking around the college anyways, so we invited her to join us again for another year, and we are so glad that we did. Because today, she's going to be my co-host as we interview some of her fellow students in the college's Master of Psychospiritual Studies, our MPS program. We're going to get to know each of them a little bit better and get a sense of what drew them to this program and have them share some thoughts on the state of psychospiritual care today from their perspective. And what better week to share this with you, listeners, since this episode is dropping on Spiritual Health Awareness Week. And not just any iteration of this special week, but CASC, another acronym that you'll probably hear often throughout this podcast, the Canadian Association of Spiritual Care, is celebrating 100 years of spiritual health. And so we're grateful for you all as students in this program and future practitioners in this important field. And we're so grateful that you've taken some time away from your studies that I know are super busy. So thank you for that and sharing your stories and thoughts with our audience today. We're so grateful that you're with us. Welcome to y'all, and take it away, Sara.
Thank you so much, John. This is a really exciting opportunity for me to connect with my fellow MPS students. I've been in courses with all of these friends here today, and I'd like to just take some time to have everyone introduce themselves. And I'll start by asking if you could share your name and tell us what brings you to Knox College in the MPS program. I'm also curious about what you were doing before you came to the MPS program at Knox. So, to my right on the screen is Courtney. Would you like to start us off, Courtney?
Sure, I can do that. Hi, my name is Courtney, and wow, that's a big question to reflect on. So what brought me to the program at Knox? I want to say my whole life, but I need like a very shorter answer. I had been working in a barn actually before joining the program. I got into regenerative agriculture, and I was actually quite stuck. I didn't really know what I wanted to do as my, let's say, career. I had spent a few years, interestingly, at different monasteries and ashrams where I thought maybe I was going to become a nun. So I really liked that contemplative lifestyle, but I also wanted to be with my family and maybe start a family one day. So I was in this kind of point of being stuck. But I will say, during those years, I met really wonderful teachers, and they had formerly been psychotherapists. So in their previous careers, they had been had clinical practices. And there was something, I guess, that there was a turning point in their lives where they realized that, perhaps they themselves are not the healer, that there's a greater force at play. And I think that bridge between spirituality and the traditions is just so important to recognize that there's like an ocean of knowledge and inspiration in all the spiritual traditions, which makes this interfaith program really special. But then bridging that with modern psychology and the science and the research that's there. So that's, I guess, what brought me to the program. I was so excited to see it existed in the first place.
That is amazing. I'm so excited to know all of this about you, Courtney. We had actually, we're in an interfaith course together right now with Rabbi Haber. Yeah. And this is exciting. Let's keep going, though. I'd love to hear from everyone. Can we hear from Colleen next?
Of course. My name is Colleen Dotson, and let's see, what brought me to Knox? I think partially it was a dream deferred. Um, but then when I think about it, really, it was just God's perfect timing, to be honest. I remember being in eighth grade and being like, I want to be a psychologist. I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to do all these things. And then life happens and I did not do any of those things. and, but I was still very much interested. And then I know probably about 13 years ago, I was looking at Tyndale, but then I've had several children. So I was like, yeah, maybe not. And then, God just worked it out perfectly that I actually work at U of T full time, which is amazing. That's what I was doing before and still currently doing. So he just opened up that door right in time. And it's perfect because I think if I were to have pursued psychotherapy, 10, 20 years ago, I would have missed out on who the healer actually is. And we're just kind of helpers along the path. So grateful for that. And then a little bit about me. I still work full time at the university and I love it. I coach for the university. I coach track and field. I have 3 amazing kids. I don't know. I feel like I'm busy, but I don't know what I do. A lot of stuff, but it's fun and fulfilling. So yes.
That's amazing. I love the joy that you're bringing with your work in the in coaching as well. That's really exciting. Okay, so we have eco-theology, we have agriculture, we have athletics, and how about David Knox? Dave.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is David Knox. I was kind of brought to Knox College by chance. I was completing my undergraduate degree when COVID hit, and I was in my last year, and I had to kind of choose between making ends meet and kind of going to school and completing my undergrad. I was working in the restaurant industry at the time, and we were one of those sectors that got hit really hard, and we kind of found ourselves shut down. I had to kind of pivot really hard and dive into insurance full time, just because it was, pandemic proof, and take courses at night while I kind of rode out the pandemic. I had plans and dreams of going to grad school at the time, wanting to be a clinical psychologist, continuing on in the field, but those kind of got sent up all in the air. Um, a friend actually recommended the Knox program to me. He was taking the MPS one course at a time, and he thought it would be a good fit, and he was absolutely right. Um, I got a chance here to work with people and meet new people, and I've always had a feeling that I wanted to help people and do something, I guess you could say, greater than myself, or just there's just this feeling that's always been present, and I feel like I ended up in the right place.
I love that. Yeah, I feel that way too. I'm really glad that I found my way to Knox College. I wonder if anybody else would like to speak to that, just how you found your way to Knox in particular, because there are a variety of Masters of Psychospiritual programs that are offered.
Before we go there,
yeah.
Before we go there, Sara, what about you?
Yeah.
Maybe the Ministry Forum doesn't know how you got here and what you were doing beforehand. Were you doing anything entertaining before you came and hung out with us?
I was yes, I was. So I was working mostly in music. So I am trained as a classical flutist. So I was playing flute in orchestras and small ensembles, and I toured all across Canada with my small ensemble. In the last several years, I got more involved in ministry in my church community in Hamilton, Ontario. And through that adventure of working with children's ministry, adult programming, and also just under the mentorship of the ministry leadership in my church, I found myself brave enough to apply to the program at Knox College in this psychospiritual studies degree. And so it's been a bit of a route through music. I taught for 20 years. I performed all over. And yeah, there's something deeply spiritual about music and music making. And so there's a real rooted connection there for me. And yeah, I found myself here in the MPS.
Well, and just from my experience, Sara, the folks, I think it's great that you've assembled this cadre of cross section of the folks that might turn up in our MPS program. But from what I know is this is true across the MPS program. There's so many people with so many interesting and diverse previous experiences. We last year when we were talking about discerning one's call or what is our own personal vocation or calling in life, there's that sense of not everybody's, and probably it's not evidence-based. And I know you all love evidence-based, but just from talking to lots of folks, it seems like it's never fully a straight path. Maybe it is for the rare human, but there's so many people that talk about, I was doing this for a bit. I had this in the back of my mind. Apparently in the 8th grade, I wanted to be a psychologist. I mean, wow, that sounds amazing. Other people want to do these things, but then, the path isn't always straight, and that we're constantly discerning, constantly working out that vocation in the midst of everything we're doing. But back over to you.
Yeah, this is a learning journey. And I would say for myself, I could say that I've really embraced that learning journey. I'm just leaning into that moment in my life. But I'm curious, Courtney or Colleen, what brought you to Knox in particular?
Well, I guess I saw really there was Emmanuel College and there was Knox that had the psychospiritual care program. And it was really a decision between the two. Within my very extremely winding faith journey, I had come into Christianity as, a few years ago. And Knox is just a little bit more Christian focused. Emmanuel has certainly more of the interfaith perspective. But yeah, for me, it was just based on feeling in my heart that the Christian path was for me.
That's very cool. Beautiful. How about Colleen?
I feel as though my answer is more practical.
Yeah, that's okay.
I work at U of T, and it came about with a Google search, and so that's what came up first. And then I am privileged enough to have access to like a little bit of a tuition waiver as an employee, so it works at Knox. So here I am.
Wonderful. Okay. We as students, we do what we need to make it happen in our studies.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Piece it all together, especially mature students. We make it work. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious now that we've all been in the program for a few years anyway. We're not incoming students, but we've been here for a while. And I'm just curious how your sense of calling or your experiential learning has been developing, like how your sense of calling has been developing through your experiential learning and the coursework. If there's anything that's really shaped you in your experience so far, challenged you, reinforced some of your thinking. Yeah. Is there anything that stands out?
I think about the whole journey over, 2 and 3 years. And I think the first year, first semester I got in there, I was like, okay, I'm going to be doing psychotherapy. And I'm looking and leaning into this because that's where my background in education is in. And then you get this theological portion, and you really start asking yourself, what do you believe, right? What do you think about the world when everything kind of falls apart and there's crisis and there's issues and suffering? And what does that mean in relation to wanting to do meaningful work, right? I can never quite put my finger on, what that is. And Knox kind of gave me these words to kind of put meaning to it. And it was calling and vocation, right? And it kind of kept me searching for what are these answers when faced with someone in front of you who's experiencing, distress and pain and harm and suffering. And then in the second year, it kind of all starts to come together. I don't know how it works. It's a mystery, to be really honest. And you start sitting with people and talking with them and really seeing that manifest in front of you. And it's challenging, but also so rewarding to be there with them.
I love that. We are, yeah, we are really challenged to articulate our sense of calling and vocation in our coursework. And then when you make it out into the world of your practicum experience, that's when we have a chance to really apply that more fully. I'm not sure if Courtney or Colleen have had a practicum yet, or if you've been in your coursework. Would either of you like to speak to, yeah, your sense of vocation?
I had completed half of a CPE unit. I was at Scarborough Health, and my husband and I got pregnant in April, and I just had really bad pregnancy symptoms. So I experienced a month and a half of CPE, and then I had to unfortunately drop out, but I mean, for very celebratory reasons. So I've had a partial experience.
Yeah, that is exciting news. And I can totally see as a student who I'm currently in CPE how challenging that would be to manage all at the same time. But yeah, do you have any takeaways, Courtney, maybe from your coursework experience or even that short time in CPE so far?
Yeah, from both coursework and the experience. So one thing I think that we all come to recognize on this journey is that you're constantly reevaluating yourself. You're looking at, your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions, your words, everything. And that's part of what this calling, this vocation requires. It's not like any other career where you get to the point where you're like, I feel very competent at my work and I can just like do this on autopilot. This is the type of work that is just like a constant feedback loop in a way. It could be challenging because it would be nice to feel like you have answers. And I'm in a theology course this semester, and I've finally accepted that we can stake our beliefs in areas, but in some sense, we are always just adjusting to the mysteries of God and all the paradoxes. And it's very beautiful, and I love that part of this. But when it comes to working with people face to face, I think there's just that requirement to ask yourself, how you're present and what you're bringing to the table, and realizing that sometimes what you find out about yourself is not necessarily something that you like. But it's not a bad thing. It's just a constant, having to understand yourself better and realizing how far we still have to go. It's very humbling work.
And this model that we all use in CPE as part of CASC is where we use an action reflection model. So we do something, we reflect on it, maybe just on our own, but we also write a lot of reflection papers. And then we have a new action and approach whatever challenge again with fresh eyes and also with the wisdom of our supervisors, but also our peer group and our classmates. So yeah, beautiful. How about you, Colleen?
So I'm like the oldest and the newest to this table. I'm doing this very part-time. So I'm only about 3 classes in. But I think this is, and just kind of echoing what everybody said, that it's impossible to kind of go through this program without being deeply reflective and not having a great sense of who you are, and who you aspire to be. And for me, something that's been not really challenging, but kind of reinforced the idea of like, it's really impossible for me personally to know who I am and who I desire to be without knowing who I believe God is and what his purpose is for me, so that I could show up the way that I'm supposed to. So yeah, for me, it's been really rewarding, and it's kind of renewed my love of the Lord. Not that it ever really went away, but it just gives you newer eyes. And how accurate is the Knox motto, like to think deeply and live authentically. And then hopefully when I get to my CPEs, to be able to lead courageously. But like that has been probably the most challenging thing, is to keep going to those deep places and live it out.
Yeah, and I would say I notice in our college community, people really are leaning into that. Like they are
Yeah.
working hard to reflect. They are like, people are not just sitting back in this degree. They're active, they're engaged. Yeah, I feel so privileged to be with this incredible group of students. It's amazing. Wow. Okay, you are all amazing. I'll say that again now. Um,
Sarah, you're amazing too. I'm just going to jump in just real quick and just acknowledge something just by bearing witness to what you all are sharing. Um, so you may know this or you may not, and this is really for the audience that's listening a little bit. But as students, you may know this or may not, that there's a sense within, say, the church, maybe even very, very specifically the Presbyterian Church in Canada, because that's what Knox College is a seminary of, that somehow the MPS program was kind of like, if we'll keep it in a university mindset. So it's like, there was this group of 4 people that were living together, and they were all the MDiv students for years and years and years. And then this one year, and it's continued on, there was only one MDiv student. And then the 3 students that moved in were MPS students. And all of a sudden something changed in the mix of the college or the mindset of the college. And I would say the bias out there in the church often that I'm often trying to, counter, and so is the college working hard to counter it as well, is this notion. I don't know if you've met people that have reverends or MDivs beside their name or whatever, but we get a little biased that we're the only ones that have callings and vocations and journeys with the Lord and spiritual depth and all those good things. And what you all are doing and sharing just in this small little sampling is I hope helping listeners to understand that this is also a calling. There's a vocational aspect to this. There's discernment that goes into this and deep, deep reflection. And that it is also a ministry. Like, I understand that not everybody in the MPS program is specifically, wouldn't necessarily use that language always as the way that they would describe it, especially in an interfaith context. And I fully get that. But at least for our listeners, just to understand that Knox College is still a part of training people to do ministry that is a calling and a vocation and a commitment to how they understand the ground of their being or whatever, however definitions they want to put around that or parameters around that. And I'll go back to David's comment as well of like to reach out to the world, people in the world who are living life in sometimes very hurting and difficult and challenging circumstances. And you all are committing yourselves to come alongside folks who are doing that. And that takes from you. That's a lot. But it's also such a gift to the world. So I just want to celebrate that within this little context, but also share with our listeners, if you're not listening, go back and listen to what these folks said when they answered this question. And that is what's happening at Minster College. Even Colleen, I mean, you are making Principal Ernest Van Eck part jump for joy that you actually know the motto of Knox College. Like, that is well done, Colleen. Bonus points for you. I'll talk to the dean and see if we can get you some advance credit. I don't know what we could do. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, Dean. Just kidding. If the dean's listening, you carry on, Sarah. I just want to name that in the midst of this as I bear witness.
Well, that actually segues beautifully into our next question. So I thank you so much, John, because I'm curious for you and through your experience in college and the coursework, but also if you've been out doing your CPEs and which is, I should tell for the audience, it's the clinical psychospiritual education. And we also have PTE units, which are psychospiritual therapy education. So there are 2 sort of streams that you can take through the CASC system. And yeah, I'm curious just if you could tell me, if you could just reflect a little bit on what you see as the state of spiritual care and psychospiritual care in particular from your experiences thus far.
Yeah. So I did 1 CPE unit and I did 1 PTE unit. I kind of wanted to get a feel for both, to kind of decide, what's the better fit for me? What do I like more? What do I find more meaningful? So the first CPE I did was over at Baycrest Health Sciences, and that was a historically Jewish long-term care home and um, non-emergency hospital. And that was the first time I ever, you know, really put on a hat of what may be viewed as some kind of minister or spiritual leader within the public. And that was such a shock to me, both to accept myself in this role and also to, I guess, be seen by others doing this. Um, that kind of work was so, so meaningful. Um, I got to work with the senior population in long-term care. The reality was, most of the time when you end up there, you're kind of you're not leaving, right? So you come across people who've um, been there for quite a long time, having feelings of isolation, abandonment, hurt, guilt, looking for reconciliation, looking for answers, while also encountering um, the many challenges we all face when we get up there in age, right? Um, that was wonderful work, and the other unit I worked on was the Knox Counseling Center, and that was the psychospiritual unit. I worked at a different age population. That was mostly undergraduates and master students at the University of Toronto, for any kind of, I guess, mental health concerns that they were experiencing. And everything ranged from anxiety, depression, isolation, grief. You kind of name it. The population here is massive, right? Um, and working with that age group was just absolutely wonderful. I enjoyed it even more. Um, Young adults have this incredible ability to um, tackle change, um, really willing to look at it to make a difference for themselves. And they have so much in front of them and they know it, that they just kind of pick things up so quickly and adapt and move forward with it. The unit itself, so we saw the population U of T. We also saw the low income and no income communities around Toronto if they were available. I worked with four other counselors at the opening of the Knox Counseling Center, and they were all uniquely talented in their own way. Um, and as well as Dr. Miwan Yang, she was a fantastic supervisor for us. She was the clinical director. She helped us work through all the things that we came across in the unit, um, while also providing just spiritual support for ourselves. Because I think you said it before, it's something that you give, but it takes, right? Um, One of the things I learned doing that kind of, I guess, like a 50-minute session with somebody is, it's like a muscle. The more you work it, the better you get at it and the longer you can do it. But at first, you get, two or three clients and like you're tired. And the next week, maybe you can do four, and the week after that, five. And it takes a little bit of time to develop like a rhythm and learn. Um, as far as the state of, I'm going to comment more on psychospiritual care because I really, really connected with that a lot more. Um, is I feel like a lot more people need it. I think people are searching for validation, someone to look at them and be with them in their own pain and suffering and really just connect, right? And feel valid and empathy. Um, and I think that goes a long way for a lot of people. Um, One of the things that we do through Knox is, we reflect and we take action, we reflect again. And, that's really helpful for people when we ask them to reflect and think about their actions and their experiences. And, is it true? Is it valid? Is there another way to think about this? What do you believe? And, I don't think a lot of people really ask themselves consciously, what do you believe? And what does that mean for you? And how does that take form and shape in your life? And I think that's something so unique about psychospiritual care is you get to ask those questions and you get to help people reflect on that and not even insert yourself into what they think, but really, you know, guide them in the way that Knox has kind of guided us to ask ourselves those questions. But that's been my experience of it so far. Yeah.
I love that. is beautiful. I can share a little bit about my experience so far. I am currently in a CPE unit, an extended unit, so it'll be September through April at Niagara Health, and I'm at the St. Catherine's Hospital site 2 days a week. And this has been, it has been a wonderful, very, very rich experience for me to suddenly move into, like Dave said, I'm moving into a ministry experience where I am really embracing my role as I walk in the room as the person who's arriving to spend maybe one visit with the patient or the family. And I feel like there is quite a bit of pressure on us when we walk in the room because, maybe you have 2 visits, but most of the time you have 1 visit. And so just entering the room with that non-anxious presence and doing the best you can to serve the needs that are appearing right in front of you at that moment. And sometimes they're very hard moments. I've been with patients who are at end of life, folks who have really challenging health conditions like Huntington's disease or and stage 3 cancer, and they're doing a lot of meaning making and asking all of the big existential questions. And it's like, okay, I'm the person in the room right now having this conversation with you. And so that has been a really exciting new experience for me. So this is also coming on the heels of a PTE unit, the Psychospiritual Education Unit at Community Counselling London. And that was a very rich experience. I was with clients who are mostly living in some sort of economic hardship. So poverty was quite a big and present struggle, a real struggle, and also a spiritual struggle that appeared for folks. And that was a totally different experience in that I was meeting with clients mostly up to 90 minutes per session and sometimes up to 20 sessions. And so it was a demanding therapeutic experience on my part. But one of the big things that I took out of that was my own personal growth in my own grounding and my ability to bring that non-anxious presence and just be there for whatever appears week to week. And so I'm trying to channel that now in Niagara in a new way, okay, I'm here now. This got one moment. Let's be here. Let's be present right here now. So yeah, that's my current experience. I'm curious from your coursework, Colleen, if you have any thoughts on psychospiritual education or theory, just what you're thinking about this whole thing at this stage in your learning journey.
Yeah, so I have not taken a lot of courses, as I mentioned before, but I think I'm older and I've had the privilege of walking alongside a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Loss of end of life. In my church, we have a great care program called Stephen Ministry. Some people may know it. It's pretty big around North America. So essentially you get the opportunity to walk alongside people who are suffering in any number of things: divorce, poverty, health, end of life, like anything. And just in general, I just feel like, especially post-pandemic, people are hurting more than they have. Those who are perfectly well adjusted, quote unquote, are struggling more. I think people are lonelier and more anxious, and I'm noticing a lot more hopelessness in people. And one thing that said a lot in Stephen Ministry is that God is the cure giver and that we are the caregiver. And I feel like that is the purpose of our coursework. And I think psychotherapy in general is helpful, but I feel like something that's really special about psychospiritual care is that we're able to address the whole person. and not just a part of them, and speak to the things that are troubling right now, which are usually uncertainty and not knowing, and just to be able to be rooted in something that remains the same yesterday, today, and forever can give you that hope. And pairing that with actual, therapeutic modules and modes to like help somebody work through suffering, I think is really important. So I think it's needed now more than ever.
I just think it's so interesting how your work in your church community and how it just so closely is knit in with what you're studying now, and how that these two can just support each other through the process. Because I do feel that belonging and our sense of belonging that we have out in our own communities is also nurtured at Knox. Like we have this sense of belonging in the college community that I think really holds us together. Like Dave and I, we entered at the same time. We're both in our third year of a 2-year degree, and we're working our way through it. And we've been there to support each other along the way. And so those communities that we come in with, but then also the growth of our new caring community that we have here at the college. Yeah, beautiful. And Courtney, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, reflecting on the state, in some sense it feels like it's a bit of a new career path, but I know that at the same time it's probably one of the oldest career path, or vocations from the start of humanity in some ways. As Colleen said, our world today has changed a lot, and there's certainly not the same religious affiliation as there was, and I think in ways for good reason, because we've sort of broken out of the very black and white thinking and feeling like God is a, authoritative figure who has very specific rules for us to follow, and right and wrong is clear and this and that. Now everything is kind of broken apart. And if you are in this world without that sense of up and down, and I feel like that, I say this because this is how I felt, which you just are in a state of, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do I not cause harm in this world? Because it kind of feels like in some ways you can look at, many career paths and think, oh, but what about, if I do this, if I think of farming because this is where I came from. And, you want to farm, you want to grow food, but then there's all these implications that you have to the land and to health and things like that. So there becomes this idealist way of trying to live that is actually not even necessarily possible. And I think that comes from our, maybe how we see ourselves too. Like, are we inherently flawed? Or if we have a faith tradition and we believe that God is a loving God, then we are to see him as, or we are his children, and that we are worthy of love. So everything, I guess, wrapped in together, that is probably what psychotherapy has been trying to do, right? Is trying to help people get to the place where they feel worthy of love so that they can go into the world and give love. And I think that's really the spiritual path too, is just realizing that we are inherently already there. But without that sense in this world, it's just a very confusing place to be. And so I hope spiritual care and psychology just sort of continues to merge and go down that path where they're combined, because I just feel like one without the other is just missing something. So,
and I'd say also for us, we're being taught how to notice the explicit spirituality, but also to interact with the implicit spirituality that the clients or the hospital patients bring as well. And so when we approach the care from our own grounding in our own faith, in our own personal theology, and we're constantly listening for the spiritual, then that can bolster and support folks to seek their own meaning and strength, and as they go back out in the world. So yeah, I'm friends, I love this. I love this. Thank you.
I love it too,
Yeah.
Sara. What I find really interesting and fascinating in listening to you all is, and just thinking about the state of religion today, or Christianity today, or whatever you want to say, or the state of the church. What's beautiful about you all is that because you're wired for psychospiritual care, um, and even how you framed it. I think people need to really hear that, the sense of like you're listening for both the explicit and implicit things around someone's expressed spirituality. Um, I sometimes wonder, like in a church context, there's obviously diversity in churches, but in a church context, some people, there's a lot of surface level sort of connection with people, and that might even be from the minister. There's sometimes a sense of you don't want to, in whatever situation you're in, even lying in a hospital bed and you have big questions, when the minister comes and your minister comes and visits you, depending on your relationship. And again, there's a diversity, don't get me wrong, but there could be a sense of like, well, my minister's coming to visit me and I have to present in a certain way. I have to say the right things, or I don't want to divulge this or that. And depending on you folks are swimming in this reality, but depending on the body language and the way in which the minister reacts to whatever you might say or do or wonder, the words they actually use, but also sometimes just a sense of like, oh, I think I've disappointed my minister, or my minister is a bit dysregulated because I've just said I don't think that God exists, or I have some issues, or I got some issues with God. And again, depending on the ministering person, it's going to be a different experience. But you get to turn up alongside somebody and just hold space for that and meet them where they're at. And I would say that every ministering person should do that, but sometimes there's a lot of baggage around that makes it difficult. Whereas you get to just do that as a part of it, in the sense that in many ways, it's been an invitational or consented to thing. If you're coming to a hospital bedside, as I understand the system, that has to be consented to. You're not just imposing yourself on people. Or if you're in a therapy sort of position, it's like someone has booked an appointment at 2:00 today, and apparently they want to talk to me. So I'm going to open up the space, and what do you want to talk about? And then you're listening there. And there's been also this sort of consented to relationship of, I'm a psycho-spiritual care provider. And so spiritual's in my name. I'm not going to tell you all about Jesus in this moment, but I'm going to hold space for you. And if you want to talk about those things, I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm not going to be frightened by it. I'm going to hold space and be inquisitive as a part of that, or curious as a part of that. I used to hang out with police officers. I was a chaplain to a police service for about 7 years. And when I first started there, they said, just so you know, we don't talk to people. We don't trust people. We're not going to talk to you. So don't take it personally. And what I described as, when you sit in the passenger seat with a police officer, I had the most profound spiritual conversations I ever had in my entire life in almost 30 years of ministry in the church. I never had the kind of conversations I had with police officers, and I never started it. So it's like, by definition, you all are going to walk into a space or hold space for people or set up appointments, and they're going to be open to you as you are open to them, to just having that experience. And so I just want to celebrate that, name that, sort of notice that in the work that you get to do. What a great gift to the world, to do no harm, as somebody phrased up. How do you do the least harm in this world? I sense you're all about to do the least harm. That sounds good. Take care of the harmed. Yeah.
So I'm at present, we're all in the program at various stages, but I'm wondering, if we dream ahead to graduation, someday we'll get there. How do you see yourself, or how do you hope to serve and contribute to the flourishing of God's world?
I had a very, very memorable experience years ago. I was, again, working on a farm, Farmer Courtney. I was in a field, and a really close friend of mine so we were kind of farming beside each other, or harvesting or planting or something. And we were kind of telling each other all of these experiences that we'd been through in a very well, of course it was safe, but it was just like we were able to get into the stories in a way that just felt so healing. And so something that I've kind of envisioned is I don't know if it's a project or program that involves being outside, getting hands kind of in the soil, growing things. I studied microbiology before in school, and so I'm like very fascinated by the world of microbes and the soil and health and how everything is interconnected, which is kind of funny because now I'm like, always looking at the macrocosm. But so I like the idea of getting a little bit more back to like our human roots, and there being a program that is related to, as I said, outside farming, therapy programs, and group therapy. That's another thing that I've experienced and have found so helpful, is being within a safe group of others talking about experiences. And I think the reason why it's so transformative is just because you're realizing that everyone's story and where they are today, like you hear all the stories of resiliency and passion and inspiration, and it's just so inspiring to be around a group of support like that. So I would love to do something related to having that type of space available for people.
There are so many creative opportunities there, and connecting in with the folks you know now, and who knows, there might be some other connections that you make along the journey here too. It's exciting.
And I should say, I say all that, but I'm like completely open. That's just one, that's like a vision that I hold. But I think being just open to any possibility is also feels like a good statement to make.
It's beautiful. How about Colleen?
Yeah, so quickly, Courtney, there's a book by Dr. Anita Phillips, and I think it's called The Garden Within. And it speaks specifically to, she's like brilliant, but about the earth and plants and how it connects directly to us as people growing in our therapy and our healing journey. But it sounds right up your alley, but in a way to like weave it all together. But for myself, I think in the big overarching view, ultimately, if I had to contribute to the flourishing of God's world, it would really just be to like really glorify him with my actions, and just to serve him by loving people, and however that looks like. I think we all have like different giftings or whatever, and I don't think your gift is necessarily your purpose, but I know my purpose has to do with caring for people. And so I'm here to learn more so I could do that. And right now I'm in a class, group therapy with Dr. Meiwan Yang, and it is amazing. And I feel like that little epiphany comes off in my head every time I'm in this class, and I'm like, group therapy is like the future. And it should have been the past and the present, because none of our maladaptations, none of our problems happened by ourselves. They happened with other people. So part of our healing should include other people. So that's where I hope to go eventually one day, if I ever graduate, taking one class at a time. But but yes, I think that would probably be the avenue I choose on the smaller stage, group therapy.
How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed working with that young adult population, and I would hope to contribute by helping others kind of find meaning in their journey. Um, I think there's something really special about being able to be open to finding meaning in your suffering and meaning um, in times of crisis. And it really helps build resilience throughout throughout your lifetime. Um, I mean, that's where I'd want to go, but I hope to kind of remain open and reflective and listening to, wherever that path may lead. It's funny, like I may want one thing, but life doesn't always go that way. It rarely does, right? And kind of walking the walk and talking the talk by saying, hey, if it doesn't go my way, or it doesn't go the way I think it's going to go, finding meaning in that anyway, right? So I hope to pass that on to other people as well.
Yeah. And I'm still on my sorting out my journey. I know that I really want to work in community with people. That's really important to me. I don't imagine myself just doing a on my own private practice. Um, so I'm sorting through what that all looks like. I have well, I live here in urban Hamilton, and so I have a real heart for poverty and social justice in that area. And that was certainly, I gained a lot of skills around serving that population at Community Counselling London. So I'm hoping to find a way to have a creative opportunity that I can pull together that will serve that population here in Hamilton. But again, lifelong learning, Center for Lifelong Learning. I can't get enough of it. So I'm here at Knox for a while, I think, anyway. I really appreciate all of you and your time. I know how busy our studies are and our outside lives and everything that we have going on. Is there anything that you are hoping that I would ask or that John would ask, but we haven't yet?
So for you and maybe Dave, actually, also, since you guys have experience doing both placements, I guess if you could name like one of your greatest challenges while in your placement and kind of how you overcame or are currently overcoming it, what would it be?
Greatest challenges. I think I can start, Dave. The placements that we do through CASC are very demanding of your reflection, right? And so you need the time and energy to be able to put your screw your head on straight after you've been with clients or patients all day. So I think time is a really important factor. And yeah, I think time is a challenge. Just carving out the time in order to be able to give fully of yourself. So currently right now I'm doing an extended CPE and I just knew for myself, I am someone who needs time. So I need time to be able to, settle my nervous system so that I can go in and be able to do all the things I need to do, including I have a teenage daughter at home and a husband and a miniature schnauzer. And I just need to, manage my whole world here in Hamilton on top of my studies and my placement. So for me, doing an extended unit made a lot more sense than doing an intensive unit. So managing your time. Yeah, managing your time. And one last thing I would say is just your expectations of what you want to get out of it. So we do set our own learning goals for each of these units. And I would say just set really manageable expectations of yourself and what you think you're going to accomplish over the course of your either 3 months or your 8-month period. Because every step of the learning is important and we don't have to try to be experts by the end of our 1 unit experience.
I think I'd say, I guess 2 things. One of the challenging things is knowing when something isn't for you. I mean, on my CPE unit, I did it to try it. I found some units more challenging than others. I mean, I really struggled with working with dementia and stroke. That just broke my heart, and it made me absolutely miserable and sad. And that came out in other ways in parts of my life, right? So knowing when something isn't for you and going, okay, that's okay. That one's not for me. There are hundreds of different ways to be active in this kind of work, right? So if you come across something that, doesn't sit right, important to reflect on it and think about it and work on it, see what you can do. But just being aware of that is one. And I think the second one I would say is, yeah, also Sarah, I'd echo you balancing that time piece, right? Like I'm very similar. It takes me time to work through something. In that moment, I feel it, I carry it, I go home with it, and then my body needs to process it. So that self-care piece that, is hammered throughout the program at Knox, it's really, really important. And you got to figure out what works for you. And once you do that, like you can process and move forward. But yeah, that time to yourself is so key. So key.
Yeah, and I would say you have a community of people who have done a whole variety of units, and we all love to talk about it all the time. So please feel free to contact us, or if anyone in the Ministry Forum audience has questions, they can also reach out through Ministry Forum.
Sara, Courtney, Colleen, and David, you are amazing humans doing some fantastic stuff. You are doing Knox proud for sure, but also whatever way you define the divine, you are a beautiful reflection of that image out into the world. So I sometimes say to people, how do you spend your day in this gig you've got? And I say, well, sometimes I just get to hang out with stuff, like listen to stuff. Last week, I spent the entire day managing a research conference for CASC. I didn't know half the things they were talking about half the time, but I got to sit there and listen to smart people talk about really amazing things. And so today I got to spend a little time with you, and I hope for our Ministry Forum audience, this has been a gift. It's been a gift to me. All the best in your studies. I listened to Sara a lot tell me the ways in which she is maxing it out and probably not getting as much time with her miniature schnauzer as she should be. And that's disappointing. But yeah, your placements that you'll be going on for some of you, the ones that you're on right now, and your ongoing discernment. I love the openness. I know that the program really teaches you to be open to everything. I hope clarity comes through that openness and in your curiosity as you seek to contribute to the flourishing of God's world. I so appreciate you, and look forward to seeing where your path leads along the way. All the best to all y'all, and thanks for joining us on the Ministry Forum podcast today. We appreciate you. Thanks for joining us today on the Ministry Forum podcast. We hope today's episode resonated with you and sparked your curiosity. Remember, you're not alone in your ministry journey. We're at the other end of some form of technology, and our team is committed to working hard to support your ministry every step of the way. If you enjoyed today's episode, tell your friends, your family, and your colleagues. Tell someone. Please don't keep us a secret. And of course, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review in the places you listen to podcasts. Your feedback helps us reach more ministry leaders just like you. And honestly, it reminds us that we're not alone either. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Ministry Forum on all of our channels. You can visit our website at ministryforum.ca for more resources, keeping up with upcoming events, and ways to connect with our growing community. Until next time, may God's strength and courage be yours in all that you do. May you be fearless, not reckless, and may you be well in body, mind, and spirit, and may you be that